Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Sabha Television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. German Chancellor Merkel stands firm on migrant policy after terrorist attacks. Country to remain open to refugees. Merkel's open-door policy attracts fierce criticism from Germans. Japan's worst mass killing since World War II. Knife-wielding man kills 19 people and injures 25 others at a care center. Attacker identified as a 26-year-old former employee of the disabled facility. Hillary Clinton accepts Democratic Party's nomination to run for U.S. presidency. Former Secretary of State calls for unity and promises to make United States a country that works for everyone. And Donald Trump encourages Russia to hack and publish Hillary Clinton's missing emails. Republican presidential nominee says it's ridiculous to think Russia hacked Democrats to help him. Clinton campaign accuses Russia of interfering with U.S. election. Well, our top focus on the program this week. German Chancellor Angela Merkel earlier this week defended her migration policy, even as she tried to reassure a country shaken by a series of recent attacks. Merkel said Germany will remain open to refugees, but will do everything humanly possible to ensure security. Merkel reiterated that only by sticking to its principles could Germany overcome the major test it is facing after 4 violent attacks since July 18th, 3 of which were committed by registered asylum seekers. Here's a report. German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Thursday described recent attacks in the country and across Europe as shocking, depressing and terrifying. But she refused to back down from an open-door refugee policy that has attracted fierce criticism following recent assaults in the country.
The terrorists want to make us lose sight of what is important to us, break down our cohesion and sense of community, as well as inhibiting our way of life, our openness and our willingness to take in people who are in need. They sow hatred and fear between cultures and religions. We stand decisively against that.
Merkel vowed to boost security and improve counter-terrorism measures, but she stood firm on Germany's position of accepting nearly all asylum seekers found to be legitimate refugees. Germany took in more than 1 million refugees in 2015, making it the most open country in Europe to asylum seekers.
Today I'm just as convinced as I was then that we can manage to cope with this historical test in times of globalization. And we have already done a lot in the past 11 months. Therefore, we will overcome the new challenges we are facing and make clear that we want to give our citizens security and to master the task of integration.
The Chancellor also believed that Germany needs to improve the process of repatriation of migrants whose asylum applications had been rejected. International treaties, however, forbid countries from returning migrants to places of danger, such as war-ravaged Syria, even if a migrant has been refused refugee status.
We will have to strengthen the process of repatriation. There have been some starting points, but for example, we must continue to work with Afghanistan to find alternatives to leaving the country and to make repatriation possible here. We must also improve our cooperation with North African countries.
Merkel acknowledged that terror groups like ISIS have been able to penetrate the migrant routes through Europe used by refugees to flee places of conflict like Syria.
The fact that the two attackers came to us as refugees mocks the country that took them in. And I would like to add, it mocks the volunteers who cared so much for the refugees. And it mocks the many other refugees who seek shelter because of violence and war, who want to live peacefully in a foreign world after they have lost everything.
Germany has been racked by 4 attacks in the last 2 weeks. A 27-year-old Syrian suicide bomber on July 24th attacked a music festival in the city of Ansbach, killing only himself but injuring 15 others. He had applied for asylum in Germany but had been rejected because he had an asylum application already pending in Bulgaria. He had been informed 2 weeks earlier that he was to be deported in 30 days. Just hours before that attack, another 21-year-old Syrian asylum seeker killed a woman in Reutlingen, attacking her with a knife nearly 2 feet in length. Germany was already reeling from a shooting spree in Munich on July 22nd by an 18-year-old German-Iranian that left 9 people dead. That attacker was not an asylum seeker, however. He was born and raised in Munich. And on July 18th, a 17-year-old carried out an axe attack on board a train outside of Wurzburg. Authorities have said he was a refugee, but there has been confusion over whether he was from Afghanistan or Pakistan. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. Well, joining me on the program this week to talk about this is Salma Bava, Professor, Center for European Studies, JNU. Welcome and thank you so much for joining me on the program. You know, were you surprised when Angela Merkel spoke earlier this week and when she said that the migration policy is not going to change as far as Germany is concerned, especially when she received huge backlash in Germany from Germans after 4 violent attacks in a span of less than 2 weeks?
I would say I was surprised. I thought she would at least tweak the policy a little bit, like add some conditionality. Given that, it has not gone down popularly so well. Germany has gone from a culture of what was called as the Willkommenskultur, welcoming the outsider. In fact, at the Munich railway station, when the first refugees came in, the people were standing in queues and welcoming. Yes. And so it's gone from there to the terrifying last 1 week where Germany is on the edge. And you would think that the chancellor would have read the mood and would have, made some conditions into it. So it is surprising she's not done that. She's getting into an election year very soon. She's looking at elections in 3 other states in the autumn this year. So, people are not able to read her at this point. Is it her personal conviction which is taking her through? Or is it a political suicide she would commit, and take the party down with her?
No, clearly these instances have left the Germans, in a state of shock, and it's going to have a bearing on the elections that are to come.
Definitely. I mean, you're very right on that, Frank. I mean, I think if you look at the elections which took place in 3 of the federal states in March, one of the main rising right-wing parties is the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, and they made strong headroads. It's not that they've gone into the legislature at this point, but they've made headroads. But the other parties did, capture some more. So I think it's not just the rise of the right as much as it is a warning to her party. And already the voices of, discontentment are now coming from within. It's not just the people on the street, but it's her own party people who are saying that it's enough. So it is surprising that the chancellor has made it her personal cause rather than, getting that political support behind her for what she's doing.
Talking about the right-wing parties, it's not just Germany. You've seen several other states in Europe where the right-wing parties are coming to the forefront and, there's a lot of support for them. Le Pen in France and in Hungary as well. Right. So are we going to see a sea of change in Europe?
I think definitely politics in the last, 15 years or post-Cold War, could say, has definitely seen a shift to the right of center all across Europe. And there are multiple reasons. There are political, economic and social reasons for it. So something like what we've seen, the refugee flows coming in, has been a very big major factor which has kind of added and given more firepower, one could say, to the right of center parties. What it does is it changes the voter preferences. It means that just beyond 2 sides of the right and left, which can moderately fall into center and get opinion to, crystallize into the middle, it's tending to go to the extremes where, very unfortunately, when you think of Europe today, we're seeing the rise of narrow identity issues, nationalism, and everything which reminds one of where Europe finished off in 1945. So for Europe to have progressed so far from 45 till now, and then kind of like now turning the clock back, will come as a big, big shock to other parts of the world, which are, where Europe has offered itself as a model of overcoming exactly these cleavages to go ahead. For example, for us in South Asia, like identity and politics still continues to hold.
Indeed.
So it's
let's refocus on Germany now. 4 attacks in the span of less than 2 weeks. 3 of them carried out by, assured asylum seekers.
True.
So, I mean, clearly the Islamic State has infiltrated through the refugee line now, and that's a problem. That's something that these countries who are taking refugees need to focus on and need some corrective measures there.
Very rightly so. I think when the flood of refugees came in, the problem began in 2011 with the civil war, and the magnitude jumped last year. September, October, November recorded the highest. There were like 5,000 refugees coming in a day. It's now it's trickled down to say 150 to 80. And in all of that, when Germany threw open the doors, there was a fear, raised that unwanted elements would also come in. I mean, that means terrorists or people from the ISIS, and that's what has happened. You've also seen that, those who are coming in for the asylum, the refugees, it takes a long process to get the paperwork done. That means people are on the edge.
Yes.
They're either in camps, moving on to other places, safe areas, but it's like a no man's land. And it's also easy to think this could also be seen, partly the lone wolf getting converted to an ideology, because that's the case about one such attacker, which means it's easy to also if they were not, some of them didn't actually earlier identify with the ISIS, have over the period of time in their stay in Germany, one person was due for deportation on the 30th, when this has happened, which tells you that how much of a psychological, or what we would call as the mental health issue. And none of this gets ever discussed when we look at refugees. You can't just see them as people coming in from a crisis area, but they're traumatized as well. And in trauma, you can easily convince somebody to do the negative.
There are many issues that need to be addressed and many things to be looked at. Remains to be seen how, of course, Europe deals with the influx of refugees. Sure. Thank you so much, Salma Bava, for joining us on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Moving on now, a knife-wielding man stabbed and killed as many as 19 people and injured 25 others at a care center for the mentally disabled in Japan. The 26-year-old Satoshi Uematsu, a former employee of the disabled facility, also reportedly said that all disabled people should disappear. Authorities have called it Japan's worst mass killing in decades.
It was early hours on Tuesday when a 26-year-old man, Satoshi Uematsu, entered a care home for people with disabilities in Japan's Kanagawa prefecture and went on a stabbing rampage. At least 19 people were stabbed to death and over 25 were injured. The incident was described as Japan's worst mass casualty in the post-war era.
He loved kids and also had a personality that kids loved him. He seemed very bright and would politely greet me. He had a very cheerful personality. During his time working at the facility, he saw people struggling and might thought that it would be better if children who are disabled did not exist.
After going on a shooting spree, the attacker, Satoshi Uematsu, then drove himself to the police station to turn himself in and was immediately arrested. According to local media reports, Uematsu said that it's better that disabled people disappear, and in fact wrote a letter in February to the Speaker of the lower house of Japan's parliament calling for euthanasia for disabled people. Uematsu was a former employee of the very same disabled facility where the incident happened.
When we worked there, all staff and tenants were like friends, so I just can't imagine this happened.
Nothing happened for 5 months until this morning when we committed these atrocities. So there were warnings, but it's hard to say whether that could or could not have been prevented.
Residents of Sagamihara said the last murder in the area was reported 10 years ago. Such bloodshed is highly unusual in Japan, which had one gun death last year, and this attack is shaping up to be the worst single perpetrator mass murder in modern Japanese history. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but still to come, Hillary Clinton officially accepts nomination to be the presidential candidate of the Democratic Party. It's now going to be Trump versus the former Secretary of State to contest for the November presidential. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, Hillary Clinton officially accepted the Democratic nomination for president at the party's convention in Philadelphia. In her speech, Clinton urged voters to unite against the divisive policy ideas and combative politics of the Republican nominee, Donald Trump.
Hillary Clinton accepted the Democratic Party's nomination to run for president with a call for unity and a promise to make the United States a country that worked for everyone. Speaking on the final night of the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, Clinton, the first woman nominated by a major party, said the country was at a moment of reckoning and faced challenges both at home and abroad.
A country where the economy works for everyone, not just those at the top. Where you can get a good job and send your kids to a good school, no matter what zip code you live in. A country where all our children can dream and those dreams are within reach. Where families are strong, communities are safe, and yes, where love trumps hate. That's the country we're fighting for. That's the future we're working toward.
The former Secretary of State rebutted many of the messages delivered by her Republican opponent Donald Trump at the Republican National Convention and accused him of sowing fear and divisiveness.
Do you really think Donald Trump has the temperament to be commander-in-chief? Donald Trump can't even handle the rough and tumble of a presidential campaign. He loses his cool at the slightest provocation. When he's gotten a tough question from a reporter, when he's challenged in a debate, when he sees a protester at a rally. Imagine, if you dare, imagine him in the Oval Office facing a real crisis. A man you can bait with a tweet is not a man we can trust with nuclear weapons.
On the final night, several Hollywood and sports personalities also pledged their support to Hillary Clinton. Legendary basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar mocked Trump and accused him of racial insensitivity and religious discrimination.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Jordan, and I'm here with Hillary. I said that because I know that Donald Trump couldn't tell the difference.
The four-day Democratic Convention saw strong endorsement for Clinton from US President Barack Obama, Vice President Joe Biden and First Lady Michelle Obama. Clinton is vying to become the first woman president of the United States, but faces a tough fight from business tycoon and Republican nominee Donald Trump for the November 8 election. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, adding a twist to the uproar over Moscow's alleged intervention in the US presidential election, Donald Trump has called on Russian intelligence agencies to find 30,000 of Hillary Clinton's deleted emails. He was referring to emails on the personal server that Clinton used to conduct official business as Secretary of State, but did not hand over to the State Department. Clinton's campaign insists that Trump was endangering national security and conspiring with Russia.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press. Let's see if that happens. That'll be next. Yes, sir.
Drama continues on charge of Russia seeking to influence the US presidential race. On Wednesday, Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump appeared to incite Russia to hack into and publish Hillary Clinton's private emails. This came after Democrats accused Russia of hacking emails from the Democratic National Committee (DNC) for Trump's benefit. Trump took the opportunity to take a swipe at his rival Clinton, who did not hand over 30,000 emails as part of an investigation into her private email server.
Putin and the leaders throughout the world have no respect for our country anymore, and they certainly have no respect for our leader. So I know nothing about it. It's one of the most far-fetched I've ever heard.
Trump's comments came when Obama administration is looking for options for possible retaliation against Russia for cyber attack on the DNC. The FBI is continuing its investigation into the leak, which included emails that showed that DNC officials favored Clinton and derided her Democratic rival Bernie Sanders. Clinton's campaign says Russia carried out the hack to weaken the Democrats and help Trump. Democrats expressed shock over Trump's remarks.
I think that was a very foolish mistake on his part because he's not thinking. He doesn't know how protocol works. He doesn't know about foreign policy. And why is he reaching out to his best friend Putin for? Is he going to, because they're pals, as opposed to doing the right thing? No, he's an idiot.
I think it's crazy for a presidential candidate to be asking for a foreign government to interfere in a presidential election in the middle of that election. So I think it's beyond reprehensible for him to do that.
Shortly before she was sworn in as the Secretary of State in 2009, Hillary Clinton set up an email server at her home in New York, which she used during her 4 years in office. An FBI investigation concluded that while Clinton should not face charges, she was extremely careless in her handling of classified information. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, much else has unfolded around the world this week. Here's a roundup of the other international news of the week in Globe Watch.
China and Russia will hold routine joint naval exercises in the South China Sea in September. China's Defense Ministry spokesman said that drills will be carried out in the relevant sea and air of the South China Sea. He further claimed that the exercises is routine and does not target any third party. The exercises come at a time of heightened tension in the contested waters after an arbitration court in The Hague ruled recently that China does not have historic rights to the South China Sea. At least 2 people were killed and 16 others were injured in a shooting at a nightclub in the Florida city of Fort Myers. The attack took place around midnight on Sunday at Club Blue that was hosting a party for teenagers. 3 people were detained in connection with the shooting. Police said shots were also fired at a home and a vehicle where 1 person suffered a minor injury. The shooting comes more than a month after a nightclub shooting in Orlando that was deadliest shooting in US history since the 9/11 attack. Turkey's President Recep Erdogan condemned Western countries for failing to show solidarity with Turkey over the recent failed coup. He said those who worried about the fate of coup supporters instead of Turkish democracy could not be friends of Ankara. Erdogan also rejected Western criticism of purges underway in Turkey's military and other state institutions, which saw more than 60,000 people detained, removed or suspended over suspected links. Police in Bangladesh killed 9 suspected Islamist militants after a gun battle in Dhaka. The militants belonged to the band Jamaatul Mujahideen that was responsible for the Dhaka cafe terror attack this month. The militants were killed after an hour-long gunfight, while another terrorist who received bullet wounds was arrested. This is the first time several suspected Islamist militants have been killed in an operation since the Holy Artisan Bakery siege. Police have been conducting planned block raids on suspected militant hideouts. At least 80 people were killed in floods and landslides triggered by incessant rain in several districts of eastern, central and western Nepal. Pyuthan district in western Nepal was the worst hit area, where 36 people died due to landslides and floods. At least 43 people went missing following the floods. Heavy rains caused massive floods and landslides in several parts of Nepal, putting thousands of lives at risk. Scores of houses and bridges were swept away in several parts of the country as incessant rains swelled rivers.
Well, let's now shift gears and bring you up to speed with all the sports news you might have missed this week in our segment Sports Action. Chris Froome became Britain's first 3-time winner of the Tour de France after crossing the finish line of the 21-stage race in Paris on Sunday. Froome ended up beating Romain Bardet of France by 4 minutes and 5 seconds, with Colombia's Nairo Quintana in third and Britain's Adam Yates fourth. Froome's 3 victories in 4 years follows Bradley Wiggins becoming the first Briton to win the race in 2012. Novak Djokovic does not believe the Zika virus is a major concern and said that it will not prevent him from playing the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. Though several high-profile athletes, including tennis players, have cited the virus as the reason for their withdrawals from the Games, Djokovic suggested that the risk might have been exaggerated. The world number one said that the fuss and the buzz about the virus has been created with some kind of other intent. The Serb, previously an Olympic bronze medalist, will be the top seed in the men's singles. 11 weightlifters, including 6 medalists, have failed a second round of doping tests from the 2012 London Olympics. Russia's 5-time European champion Natalia Zablotnaya was among 3 silver medalists from the London Games to fail tests, along with compatriots Alexander Ivanov and Svetlana Zarukeva. Other London medalists to fail tests included Irina Kulesha of Belarus, Armenia's Ripsime Kurdushian, and Moldova's Kristina Iovu. All the athletes who tested positive were found to have used a banned anabolic steroid. FIFA's Ethics Committee has banned Wolfgang Niersbach, the former president of the German Football Association, for 1 year. The Ethics Committee found the 65-year-old failed to report possible misconduct concerning the awarding of the 2006 Soccer World Cup in Germany. Niersbach resigned from his role in November last year after he failed to explain a €6.7 million payment from the German World Cup organizers to FIFA. Gonzalo Higuain has become the third most expensive player in history after signing for Juventus from Napoli in a deal worth €90 million. Higuain's transfer places him behind the Real Madrid pair of Gareth Bale and Cristiano Ronaldo on the record list. The Argentina striker scored 36 goals in 35 Serie A games last season as Napoli finished second in the table, 9 points behind Juve. Having moved to Europe with Real Madrid joining from River Plate, Higuain scored 107 goals in 6.5 seasons and helped Real win 3 league titles and the 2011 Copa del Rey. He moved on to Napoli in 2013. And finally, Cuba may be one of the world's least connected countries, but that's not stopping the Japanese subculture of anime and manga graphic novels spreading among its youth, who held their third Otaku festival. Hundreds of otakus or geeky fans flocked from around Cuba to the event in Havana Theatre, defying the sweltering summer heat to role-play sporting the costumes of their favorite fantasy characters, a practice known as cosplay. I'm going to leave you with these visuals. See you again next time.